Hello, and welcome to The Foundation, a Parks People podcast, presented by the National Association of Park Foundations. And now, your host and Executive Director of the National Association of Park Foundations, Kevin Korenthal.
Greetings and welcome back to the Foundation of Parks People podcast. Really glad that you took some time out of your schedule to join us for another exciting podcast from the National Association of Park Foundations. We're just so grateful to all of our members that participate with the NAPF. If you don't already know, the NAPF is the sole organization set up to create and grow park foundations around the United States. So if your park agency doesn't yet have a park foundation, we're obviously an organization that can help you do that. And if your park foundation is looking to grow, you're looking to do some strategic planning, you're looking to do board development, you're looking for basic tools and policies, you're looking for some consulting from folks, my board and myself and my consultants that have dozens of years of experience. And as a organization representing park foundations, it's really my pleasure to introduce today one of our members. She is the executive director of the St. Johns County Park Foundation in Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome very much to Marithza Ross.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And just a really quick correction, because I know the people of St. Johns County will want me to correct that. So we are actually south of Jacksonville. So Jacksonville is our big metro city, and they're the ones that usually get all the glory. St. Johns County is south of Duval County, which is where Jacksonville's at. And yeah, we represent the entire county. So we have a lot of people that work in Jacksonville, but live and play and enjoy our beautiful parks here in St. Johns County.
So this would be like me saying that I'm in Dallas when actually I'm in a suburb of Dallas,
Yes.
McKinney, Texas.
Yes.
So Marithza, I always like to begin at the beginning, and the beginning began with your career in television news, specifically in meteorology and traffic. Can you tell us a little bit how that came to be and kind of talk to us about that experience?
Yeah, so I got my meteorology degree out in San Antonio, Texas, at the University of the Incarnate Word. I
Go
also got a
Texas.
master's. Yes, I also got a master's in organizational development, but I quickly jumped into the TV broadcast route, and I started the small markets down there, jumped over to San Antonio, and then moved, got married, had a child, moved to Florida. So during that time there, I kind of took a break, raised our daughter, and traveled with my husband, who works for the PGA Tour. So we were just kind of having a grand old time, right? And then things started to kind of shift. Our daughter got a little bit older, so I went back into news, and we have a wonderful station, the CBS 47 and Fox 30 station here in Jacksonville, that I did freelance work for. Because I didn't want to fully commit to a full-time job, especially having a little one at home. So for about a few years, I kind of jumped in and out and just kind of did contract work for them. And then it was almost like, hey, you're coming in to do weather. How about you want to try traffic? I'm like, sure, why not? Just I've been doing this for so long that I've reported, I've anchored, I trafficked, I've done all the things. So it was just a great way to work and still kind of keep my skills pretty fresh. And then as time went on, I went ahead and jumped on full time, doing weather and traffic, and then just strictly traffic. So it was about 7 years that I kind of did that here in Jacksonville. And in between, there was a little sliver of time in between when I decided to go try out public relations for St. Johns County. And that was a really eye-opening opportunity for me when I did that. I learned so much about our county government that I had no idea. I've always been exposed to going to commission meeting or city council meetings through my job and hearing about them. But actually being inside the office really changed a lot of my perspective. And Lord and behold, I was actually the liaison for the Parks and Recreation Department. So I was kind of helping them with all their PR stuff. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And it was eye-opening. And so that's kind of how it all started. I went back to news full time, and And I just kind of kept in contact, obviously, with news stories and things that are happening in St. Johns County and with Parks and Recreation. It was kind of funny because some of my traffic segments were like, oh, if you're going to this park to go play pickleball, just to give my friends a nice little shout out
Sure.
at the different events that they had going on. So I had a lot of fun with that. And when the opportunity came up for the Parks Foundation, I was like, I think this is a great transition into my career as I kind of got started to get a little tired of waking up at 2:45 a.m. for the morning show. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna give this a shot and see what happens. I'll go through the motion of the applying and resumes and all the things, and here we are. I got the job.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the transition to Park Foundation. What did you learn from your time working in news in the newsroom and as in public relations that you think kind of informed you on your work that you're doing for the Park Foundation?
Um, a lot. So I worked a lot with nonprofits on the different scope, especially in news, like going to MC their events or going to just be, invited for certain things or help us spread the word on this, help us do that. So I kind of saw a very different angle of that. And I think that kind of helped me to understand what doesn't work,
Hmm.
what needs work, and then what really works. And then when I started working with public relations, what I was realizing was you guys do so much more than anyone knows.
Yeah.
And that's not a story, that's not getting out there. And this is why you're not getting the attendance that you wanted, or this isn't better. And so I really started to kind of see that and through those lenses of just the news person and looking at it from that perspective, then looking at it inside on the deep inside, that's when I really learned how to kind of put some of that communication together. One of the things that I saw with nonprofits was, a lot of their communications were just on their events. It's just, the
Yeah,
galas.
not the other stories that are going on.
Yes, not the stories about what's happening with the problem or with whatever the agency is actually doing. So that was kind of something very eye-opening because, I mean, just something very simple. People don't understand the cost of a turf field. And I think if you were able to educate them on things like that, they would
Mhm.
understand um, a little bit more about why a foundation is important or
Yeah,
why,
or why agencies choose a certain type of turf, which
yes,
yeah,
or
and
why it
I
doesn't magically appear one day to the next.
right. Well, so I follow you on all the socials. I love the content, and I invite our listeners to look Marithza Ross up on the socials. She does a lot of content around parks and recreation and some of her other loves, and so that's definitely subscribe to that. So let's go a little bit deeper into the Parks and Recreation Foundation angle because you were introduced to us from a third-party consultant who had recognized that the NAPF could be a resource for you. How did that kind of transition and give us a little overview of kind of that first couple of months on the job?
Yeah, so that was very eye-opening. Obviously, I didn't have any nonprofit executive experience, and all of my stuff came from corporate media. So I have a very different thought process about things. And then I also don't know a lot of things. So one of the first things I did was I hired a consultant to go ahead and brush up our bylaws and our policies and procedures because I felt like that was still missing for the foundation and as well as our financials and things like that. So when I hired Tina, well, first off, I did go to Community Foundation to get a recommendation. So it wasn't a willy-nilly choice from me. And they gave me a few recommendations. I talked to Tina. She's absolutely wonderful. Tina Worth at Worth Works. Um, and she, fixed our bylaws, kind of worked with the board to just kind of help on understanding how things should be on the board side, how things should be on the executive side, and just as an organization. As I continued to work with her, that's when she started to that's when she started to bring up the NAPF. And I had known about the NAPF before, just kind of mooching off some of your some of your language and all the videos that I see in there. So I had definitely done my research with that, but I wasn't sure if that was the direction we should take since we already had her. And essentially, she was sort of doing the same thing. But even she recommended that this was such a particular nonprofit. It's very different from other ones because we work with a government agency. She really pushed moving forward with NAPF. And I'm so thankful for that. I know she was the one that reached out and kind of made the connection and kind of set us up. And yeah, I mean, we haven't looked back since.
Yeah, the,
It's
the
been great.
community the community foundation model is a great one. A lot of park foundations actually come out of community
Mhm.
foundations or they're part of community foundations. But you're correct. Once a nonprofit organization is partnering with a government agency, it becomes a completely different animal. So I definitely can appreciate that resonance of it. So let's start on day one with the and going through the first couple of months of your time there. What are some of the highlights? What are some of the things that you were surprised about, or maybe things that didn't surprise you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things for us was the lack of momentum with the organization itself. Nobody really knew who the Parks Foundation was. The board members, I think, after a time of just kind of being stagnant, they kind of got comfortable with that, which is very normal within any organization or any job out there. So kind of coming in with all this energy and all of this like let's go do it, and it was just a little like wah, wah, wah. So so that bringing in Tina obviously helped us get a little bit more momentum, and then on this side of things I really just started reaching out to community groups and resident groups, and just started to talk about their story, how they use our parks, and how what's their favorite park, or what do they use it for, any volunteers. So I was really just kind of creeping on anyone and everyone that used our parks, and I started like that just to try to build um, a little bit of recognition on the outside. On the inside, with all the administrative things, there was a lot of just kind of organizing with the bylaws and with the board, and growing the board as well. The understanding, because there was so much time that there was no executive director, there was no direction. It, it made things difficult, and it made things difficult for me because I think I just have that personality where I'm just like, let's just go do it. Let's do it better. Let's do it the best, and let's keep doing it. So that kind of put a lot of things into perspective on about how I need to be a little bit more settled, a little bit more methodical about how I approach things. As you remember, I called you and you came and you talked to our board, and that was, I think, something that I probably should have done maybe month one. And
Yeah, that
and
that's the board training that the NAPF
yes.
does that we put on. It's about a 90-minute to 1 hour, excuse me, 90-minute to 2 hour online training that we do specific to the bylaws and the other founding documents. And so, what was your perspective on that experience?
I think the perspective, well, it was great. And it actually got my board members. I think there was a sense of an aha moment for them too about what their role is. I think I have some green board members, so there wasn't a lot of understanding of exactly what am I doing here. Or they came on before and there was a completely different direction going on. So that was big for us because I think it helped everyone to understand this isn't just a regular volunteer. I'm going to go make sandwiches for someone and then I'm going to go home, and that's that. This is something that is way more than that. And not to mention, again, going back to being partnered with a government agency, there's so much responsibility in that itself that all board members need to understand.
Yeah, and I think that following up on that, we had you enrolled in the Establishing a Park Foundation program.
Mhm.
It's a 4 week uh, online program again, training that I think, at least from my involvement in it, really getting the ABCs out of the way with regards to establishing and growing a park foundation. What was your, was there some aha moments out of that? What were some things that you kind of got out of that training?
I think it was awesome to see that there are others on the same boat that
That's always the number one thing that people
that
say
felt
is,
so
yeah,
good because there are times where I was like, I think I made a really big mistake coming on board. Just like maybe I should run back to media or, things like that. But being able to be in a community that had other people that were going to similar problems or had different problems, but there are problems that I think maybe perhaps I will probably avoid now. It was just so nice to hear everyone and to get connected with what was going on and feel a little bit more normalized about what we're going through and maybe not so selfish, like ours are the worst problems in the world. So that was wonderful. Obviously the content was great as well. It was very helpful to get the contracts,
yeah.
MOUs, and really diving into that specifically was something we weren't even there. So being able to get us there was awesome. That's probably the best thing that I got out of the class was how to write a good MOU.
Yeah, and you mentioned the networking aspect, and this is something that so I talk to so many folks that are in the space, and I find these connections. Oh, you're dealing with this issue? Well, this organization just dealt with a similar issue, and I'm really trying to grow NAPF in a way that we're constantly looking for ways that we can connect members. So a member has an issue, they put it up on a bulletin board, or we do an email about it. Those types of things, I think, are what, and these courses that we have. By the way, the annual fundraising training by Dr. Nathan Schaumloffel is going on right now. That's something you can look at on my website under our resources tab, by the way, folks. We have that going on now. We may do that again this year. Definitely we'll do it again next year. But that's an 8-week course, a little bit more advanced than the uh, Advancing a Park Foundation. But again, one of the main things that I always get in the feedback, what was the number one thing that you took away from this? I got to hear other people's perspectives. I got to find out that I'm not alone on an island. Other people are dealing with the same challenges that I am. So, Maritza, going forward, how many months now have you been in the role?
Since October, so I guess 8, maybe.
Okay, about
Yeah.
8 months.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as you're moving into the completion of your first year that are coming up as the main priorities of the Park Foundation right now?
Ooh. Well, I think I'm getting a little bit more momentum with the board as we have grown the board during this time, thanks to also just your help and your direction. So that's good. I think now it's really talking about revenue and everybody jumping on board with the different ways to create that revenue. Um, we have for us because we're countywide, we have 42 miles of beach, we have a river, we have the suburbia, we have agriculture, farmland, we have low income, we have historical. There are just a lot of different niche areas, and that makes getting a message out there a little bit difficult,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to parks and recreation, because, for example, our county, the north side of the county is a lot denser. So when resources go up here, it starts to kind of create a divide with the southern part of the county where it's like, well, the north side only gets, the resources, or the west side, or only the beaches, or only the people with money, or only the poor people. And it's very divided. So our messaging it's a little difficult when it comes to that because you're not talking to one audience. We're
Right.
trying to be very countywide and very equitable when it comes to the messaging. So we have started sponsorships through our parks and recreation programs. So they already put on some amazing programs that a lot of people don't know about, but they're really starting to know about them. And now with a sponsorship tacked onto them, not only are we able to support and enhance these programs, we're also able to create a community around that. Through those businesses that had no idea. And then they come and they're like, oh, wow, this is really great. I want to do this again. Or how do I get more involved? Or let me bring so-and-so's business over because they would love it too. So now we're just kind of creating a different angle of revenue. And then also continuing our major donor conversations and being able to kind of build these relationships. Community relations is a big one for these 3 years. That's kind of one of my bigger priorities.
Okay.
That's the only way we're going to really start creating that trust.
Yeah, right. Get everyone to know who you are and what you do
Yes.
is number one in
Yes.
every scenario, right?
And the last thing that I didn't want to get into, because this is something that I do feel like I saw a lot on the news side, was organizations, especially nonprofits, always asking for money.
Mm,
And I get that that is what we do. You know, we need money. We ask for money. But by talking about these events, by talking about how wonderful these programs are, people just start to kind of see it. They're just like, oh, well, how can we help? You know, those businesses that I reached out to, they were like, oh, we can do that. Or, oh, we can bring the free, this. We have so much in kind that we've been getting from local businesses. And that's something that was never done before. But all things aside, we're just creating more customers to get that brand out there. I want Parks and Recreation to be a brand that our residents know. Not necessarily, and notice how I didn't say the Parks Foundation. I said Parks and Recreation to be
right.
the brand.
Well, that's because you're supporting the Parks and Recreation programming. Dr. Nathan teaches in fact, he helps the students produce the annual fundraising case statement. And that's what you're talking about, telling the story, who we are, why your money matters and what we're going to do with it, right?
Mhm.
That's number one. Then it's those relationships that you've built that take you to the point where you can put your hand out and say, could you please? So I always say the story is first. You have to tell people the story. They have to be able to envision what your organization is about and what you're going to be doing with it. I can't believe, but we're already coming up to our closeout period here at the end of the episode of this podcast. The It's been wonderful, as it always is every time that we have a chance to communicate, Maritza, and spending some time, agreeing to spend some time with our members and subscribers here on the podcast. We're just so grateful for everything that you do for Parks and Recreation and for your support of the NAPF.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for everything you guys have done for us. I mean, we are just so excited to have um so much knowledge from you guys, because that's what's making us better, and it's making my board members better, and it's just elevating our foundation, and which in turn elevates our agency.
Well, on behalf of my board, I appreciate that feedback. And I want to let everyone know that we'll be coming out with another episode of this podcast soon. We really appreciate everyone's support. There's contact information on the website if you want to reach out. If you have any questions, we'd love to answer those for you. But in the meantime, thank you for joining the podcast, and we'll see you later.
Thanks for tuning into The Foundation, a Parks People podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@the-NAPF to not miss an episode. To help this podcast grow, please like, comment, and share with your friends. Have a great day.